I don't even know if I said Happy New Year. Happy New Year. This is so late in the podcast to say that. Good, whatever time of day it is, you're joining me back here on Consequences of Communication Podcast, Episode 7, Building Relationships, Starting a Dating Relationship. My name is Tyler. I'm going to be your host, and I'm so happy that it is the start of 2024. Oh, 2023 went by like that. It was so fast. There's something that's kind of a pet peeve of mine, and I know this is kind of weird to say at New Year's time, but I'm going to say it anyway, because New Year's resolutions, in my opinion, kind of suck. I understand the mentality of it, of like, oh, this is the end of one year, beginning of another year. I need to have that complete definitive moment to be able to start something new. I understand that some people are like that, but me, I started this podcast in October. If I would have waited 2.5 months to start this would be the first episode, and we wouldn't have 6.5 other episodes to go and listen to. I decided to start a podcast, and instead of waiting until the beginning of the year, like this episode, I decided to go ahead and just start. I had to do about a couple weeks of planning to kind of figure some out, like make sure that the podcast flow was right for each episode, that those flows were similar, coming up with the ideas and the progression so it's not a jumbled mess, so there's some organization to it. Oh yeah, and the whole like new year, new me, I think that's baloney, because for me, I've noticed that if you change too much too quickly, change is not sustainable. Slow and steady is your best practice. Without further ado, today's topic is starting a dating relationship. 3 key things that we're going to talk about today are where to find the quality of partner you're looking for, being courageous and approach, and the first date, because those are pretty important. I mean, you can't actually start dating unless there's a first date, because that's literally the start of it. And before we get into it, I want you to keep in mind these few questions as we go about the podcast today. Who should pay for the first date? Is it the man, the woman? You split the bill? The one who was asking? The second question is, do you believe in the concept of there's only one person out there for you? Think about it. Now we're going to get into it. The last episode, we discussed the qualities to look for in a partner. So keep the list you made in mind as you go through today's episode. For those looking to start dating with the intention of marriage in the future, where both parties retain as much value for their future spouse as they can. Which means if you recognize it's a toxic relationship, you get out of it. You don't have sex before marriage. All the mistakes. If you've been in a romantic relationship before, you know what I'm talking about. There are definitely things that you have as red flags now on your list because of past relationships or other people's past experiences that they've told you about. Those are all pretty important. So the first point that we're going to be talking about today is where to find the quality of partner you're looking for. Remember, the qualities of the partner that you want are on your list. The must-haves, it'd be nice to have, they should have, and I would like them to have. And then red flags. So people with those qualities have a specific place that they tend to spend their time. Like to illustrate this point to the best that I possibly can, there's a people of Walmart.com, but there is not a people of Target.com. I mean, there may be now, but I don't, to my knowledge, there's not one. But like people of Walmart are like pictures of people at Walmart that are not dressed appropriately, that actually kind of deserve public ridicule because they are dressed horribly. And it's like super skimpy clothing, not all the clothing that you need, not all the stuff that's covering up. Things may be exposed. Definitely not a place for, like, I wouldn't want to take my kids to around these people. Now, if you want to go to Target, there's just a different atmosphere involved, and the dress, like, everybody's dressed nice. It's typically moms and ladies that shop there. I mean, some guys shop there. I do. I shop at both, but there's Walmart's closer. I don't really care. I'm not a parent at the moment. And then at Target, they have a like unspoken dress code almost. So that's really kind of what it is. So if you're looking for quality, especially for like family and all that, then, Target would be the place to go. It's a metaphor. They might be at Target. Your future spouse may be at Target, but don't take that as the only place to find it. That's just the major difference is there's people at Walmart.com. There's not a people of Target.com. Other example, if you're wanting somebody who is a God-fearing woman, which is just a high reverence for God, making God the focal point of their life, then you're probably going to find them in church. I also really don't like mind-altering substances because it impairs your judgment. Regardless of what you think, it absolutely does. It's really hard to draw a line because there's people out there that if they have one drink, then they're just like three sheets to the wind, which is they're gone, they're drunk, they have no reasoning. And then there's other people that can drink like a gallon and they'll be fine. Actually, probably not. I don't know if that's true or not for Kellen, but I think you guys understand what is it called? There's this very specific thing that it's called. I think it's like a metaphor or something. I'm not sure. I mean, if you're into your party phase, then that's where you find them, but you're not going to you're going to have quantity of options, but not quality of options. I mean, that's just how it is. Like, if you like playing guitar, find out where other musicians play or start playing shows and meeting people that like your music. If that's something that if you want your future spouse to like your music, that's kind of an environment. That's kind of what I'm talking about with this. Look for where the quality of person that you're looking for would spend their time. Or when you find candidates, they're not going to automatically be the main contender for the type of relationship you want. That is where your investigation begins. And not on social media or rumors or from glancing, but from the source. So you find someone who is attractive that you want to approach at the location or in an environment where the quality of spouse that you want is at. Go up and talk to them. I mean, make sure they don't have a wedding ring on their left ring finger, but go talk to them. Be polite. That's really what it is. Go be polite and talk to them. Just like we talked about a few episodes ago. Shake their hand, introduce yourself, give them a compliment, see where the conversation goes from there. Which leads us to the next thing is you have to be courageous in approach. Have the courage when you find that someone that fits your preliminary list and talk with them. Introduce yourself. I did just say that, but again, introduce yourself. I would love it if, like, just me, like, I would love it if some random person came up to me and followed this, not just from a romantic perspective, but like in a friendly way. If they started this, I think everybody does want this on some level, and it's a good place to start. Is you ask a respectful question, and the "Do you come here often?" is completely overrated. So I like to think of something, that I think is something that's really entertaining to think about. Who's your favorite superhero, Batman or Iron Man? I want somebody who at least knows about them and is nerdy enough so I can have a conversation with them about it, because I like thinking about that kind of stuff. That's something that I get really excited about. So that's something that I'm going to look for. After you ask that respectful question, let the conversation flow naturally. They may bring up, "Oh, I don't like either of those two. My favorite is Storm from X-Men." All right, cool. Like, what makes you like Storm? Pay attention to how much time you're taking of theirs. Like, you don't want to spend more than like 5-10 minutes, depending on how the conversation goes. You just want to have some kind of conversation, leave a positive impression on them. Don't be like, "Oh, you like Storm? Well, that's not what I asked. I asked Batman or Iron Man. Those are your only options." It's not the smartest thing to do if you ask or impress on them if that's the only thing that you're talking about is Batman or Iron Man, and those are your only two options. If you come across like that, then the impression that you get, like, I wouldn't even want to talk to you, and I kind of know what you would mean. But if you come across with that kind of like tonality and that like overbearingness, it's all right, I'm done with you. Like, you're kind of a tyrant. You're going to be a jerk. You're not going to be one of the cool people that I want in my life. And you don't want that impression for a potential spouse. You want to leave a positive impression. And then once you get like talk to them for a little bit, and the conversation should be inquisitive, respectful, helpful, positive, encouraging, concise, meaningful, and genuine. Inquisitive, you're being curious about them. Respectful is you're keeping them in mind and you're not demeaning them. You're holding whatever they say in high regard, and it's attentive, and it's noticeable with your body language and your responsiveness to those to whatever she's saying, whether it's questions or a statement or whatever. Like, "Oh, Storm, that's an interesting choice. Why do you relate to Storm the most?" Usually X-Men are a little bit more relatable to everybody. positive, encouraging, concise, meaningful, and genuine. Like all of those things are really good things to leave an impression with. And at the end of the brief conversation, if you're enjoying the conversation, be real with that. Be like, hey, I'm really enjoying this conversation. I'd love to continue this further, but I need to get running and finish running this errand. I got whatever you have going on to get to, or I have other errands to run. But can I get your number and take you out for coffee sometime so we can continue this conversation, or ice cream? I mean, coffee to me is kind of overrated at this point. I like finding like the niche kind of things. Like at some point it's boba or like boba tea. Other times it's ice cream, yogurt. Other times it's frozen yogurt or froyo. So it just depends like what you want to, like I want to not go for coffee. I mean, if we want to go for coffee, that's fine. All of the ideas that I just said, coffee, frozen yogurt, ice cream, boba, those kind of places are like sit down, casual. It's no strings attached. There's not really like a weight to it or a time obligation, so that they can, besides like the first 5 minutes of you getting your stuff, if it's not going well at any point, either party can leave. As opposed to if you go to a fancy restaurant, it's like, oh, we just ordered our food and you're wanting to leave. Oh, great. So this meal is, not only is it going to be expensive, it's going to be a miserable meal. Why are we here? Like nobody wants to be stuck in those situations. Those are mortifying to me. You know, you want to make sure that you can still have that conversation, that kind of inquisitive, respectful, helpful, positive, encouraging, concise, meaningful, and well, not really concise in that context, but genuine conversation. So you want to be inquisitive, respectful, helpful, positive, encouraging, concise, meaningful, and genuine when you're first meeting. But when you're going out for coffee, frozen yogurt, ice cream, boba, you want to make sure that your conversations are inquisitive, respectful, helpful, positive, encouraging, meaningful, and genuine. So we drop the concise because you're getting to know each other. And during that conversation, you're going to be able to fill out more of the list or check off more of the list. Not all of it, and that's going to be over time. But then you're going to start developing, this is a romantic relationship I'm interested in. I want to pursue this further, which is going to be later. Also, when you go to those places, frozen yogurt, ice cream, boba, coffee, there's no hard feelings if you get ghosted or left alone as an individual, because you could still get those things. So it's like, man, she didn't show up. Well, at least I get to get some frozen yogurt. Like, it's almost like a win-win. Planning the first date is important. Let's talk about how to get something set up. Do not pick an environment that takes away the opportunity to talk to each other, such as a movie or a concert. You don't want to take it to like a loud, obnoxious place. There was this one time, one of my best friends and I, we just moved to DFW area, Dallas-Fort Worth area. We actually moved in together and were roommates for a while. And then we went to a meetup, which meetups are cool. And this was a singles, like a mingling singles event, right? So you're single, you're mingling, get to know each other. Awesome. So I'm thinking it's like a coffee shop, light music in the background, like one person singing, or like a small band playing like an acoustic set. So it's not like you can hear it. It's more like background music. This place, like we got there way before the event started, and it was like, okay, this place is pretty nice. Right when they opened, they turned off the lights, and it was basically like a mini club. And I had to yell to hear my roommate talking. And I'm like, dude, this is not an environment to meet people. The same kind of event, like the same kind of thing. You want to avoid those kind of events. Do not be by yourselves. Sexual tensions seem to rise in those situations. Being in public can and should prevent a lot of those. So if it's like, oh, come over to my house for dinner. Not for a first date, you're not. No. Being in public is a great way, especially if there's a wait staff. It's a great way to see how they treat people that they don't know. I mean, you're somebody that they don't know, but it's also good to see how they are on a regular basis. Like treating wait staff is a pretty big deal, because it shows a handful of qualities. If they're nice, kind, and courteous, and respectful, and even when, like, if their order gets messed up, which, you know, everybody gets irritated and has a boiling point at some point. But I think you guys know what I'm getting at. Pick something fun and not too strenuous in any regard, like rock climbing, 5K run, triathlon, Lord of the Rings marathon, concert, etc. Those are all things that you want to avoid. We already talked about the concert. So rock climbing, that's a pretty intensive thing to do. A 5K run, also pretty intensive. Triathlon, way more intensive than 5K, in my opinion, because you have multiple different things to do. You can't just get into a rhythm and stay in it. Lord of the Rings marathon, phenomenal. I love a Lord of the Rings marathon, just not for first date, because it's with the extended versions, which are the only ones that I'll watch. I think the Hobbit trilogy is like 10 hours or something like that, which is relatively short in comparison to Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is like the first Fellowship of the Ring and the Two Towers are like 3.5 hours each. So that's 7. And then Return of the King is like 4.5. So that's like a 12-hour day nonstop. So I don't know about you, but there's food breaks in between, and there's actually a really cool thing to do with that. So this is like a pro tip for when you get to Lord of the Rings marathon stage, is you have snacks in accordance with the Hobbits mealtime. So first breakfast, second breakfast, morning tea, 11 C's, lunch or brunch, lunch, 11 C's, and all the other ones. There's a schedule out there, so just Google it and type it up, and you can do like a couple different charcuterie boards where you got some crackers, ham, cheese, like different things at each different time. And if you're gonna go get those, you like stop or pause the movie so you can go get those and get those things set up, or have them really set up and readily available right next to wherever you're watching, so it's not really a distraction. But that includes bathroom breaks and stretching. If y'all smoke, I don't. Like those kind of breaks, which just prolongs how long the marathon takes. Lord of the Rings marathon is a pretty big obligation, and to spend that much time with somebody on a first date is kind of ridiculous in my opinion. It's too much. So things to do: think back on the conversation you had with them when you first met them, and see what they were passionate about and what they inquired about you and what you inquired about them and their responses. Because if they responded with X-Men, I'm like, oh, sweet. They probably are kind of a video game nerd. So when you go to a first date, an option for that in the DFW area, north of town, there's a video game museum, which is really cool. Like it's it's not a museum where you just go through and you can't touch video games and stuff and all that. No, it's a game, or it's a place that has a whole bunch of different statues and the history of video games and how they got created. And as soon as you walk in, there's a statue. At least when I went, there was a statue of a conglomerate of Nintendo characters. There was Mario, Donkey Kong, Luigi, and a couple others that I don't remember off the top of my head. But when you walk into the left, there's a giant, probably 15 by 15 foot screen of Pong, like the original game of Pong. And the dial for Pong was, no kidding, this big, like this big around. It was like bigger than a steering wheel, like what you would think of a truck driver wheel. It was pretty fun. It was fun, interactive, entertaining, educational, all of that. I digress a little bit too much of a tangent on that, but that's fine. It's what I'm passionate about. And I'm also passionate about helping people, building relationships, and knowing what the consequences of communication are. Let her know ahead of time, generally what to expect: casual walk, dress comfortably, dress for motorcycle rides, dress semi-formal, etc. Especially if you're a guy. I mean, I can go in swim trunks and a tank top and flip-flops and be perfectly fine. But I also want to make sure that that's not showing her respect, because that's a guy dressed way down. I mean, only so many people can pull that off. And I'm definitely not of the body yet to pull that off. And I wouldn't want to, even if I was, because one of the things that I value is it's modesty. That's what I value, modesty. So that's, if you're a ripped guy, don't wear skin tight shirts. Like, that's a form of modesty, because you're leaving something to the imagination. Like, yeah, your chest may be puffed out and you may have like nothing showing down here, and it's like all loose material on your abdomen, and your shoulders are going to be a little bit bulky, so people can tell what your general build is. That's fine. But if you do like a skin, like Under Armour, those shirts that just like squeeze you, yeah, don't do that. And of course, these are all my personal standards, and what I think is to give you the best opportunity, because you want to make sure that whatever state you met the person in, that you dress a step up from that, so they're like, oh wow, this is They look better now on this first date than they did the first time I met them. You have respect for yourself and others to do that. And same to them. Like, you want to make sure that they're dressing appropriately for what you're doing, because you don't want to be like, hey, dress in formal wear and high heels and go for a 5 mile walk. And guys, have you ever tried walking 5 miles just on your tiptoes and maintain balance the entire way? I try to do that on curbs occasionally. Like the side of curbs, there's that like 6 inch or 8 inch like block before the sidewalk. I try to walk on that occasionally, and I lose my balance there all the time. So you don't want to give too much away of like, hey, I'm going to take you to the video game museum, so you need to dress casually and place to, kind of be comfortable in. You don't want to tell her that. You just want to tell her, hey, we're going to do some walking, some standing. It's going to be an interactive event. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, but we're going to be doing a lot of that. So just so that you're aware, that's what we're doing. But y'all understand what I'm trying to say. Be flexible during the date. If you plan for a walk around a botanical gardens, you should know about how long that takes and plan to bring some water, a snack, walk at a leisurely pace through it. Take your time, because if you're rushing through it, then the impression that you're rushing through something like that, where it's like a walk-through course through a botanical garden, is you're not enjoying the time with your date. So don't rush through it. If you take it at a leisurely pace, walk slower than you normally do, it's easier to have conversations, and you give off the impression that, okay, they're taking their time. They want to spend more time with me than what walking this normally does. Something that I'd like to ask, especially if she doesn't seem too interested in whatever you're doing, a good thing or a good question to ask is, if you could be anywhere right now, where would it be? Like, of course, you could ask it in a playful way instead of, that's an okay way to say it. But if you're like, if you could be anywhere right now, where would it be? That comes off as like disinterested, like you're not being respectful, you're not being kind. You're like, okay, this is obligatory, all that kind of stuff. Where if you're like, hey, I got a question for you. If you could be doing anything right now, regardless of time, money, attention, whatever, like time, money, physical location, whatever, what would you be doing right now? Or where would you be? Based off whatever answer they do, you could change it up. So if you're walking a botanical garden and they're like, I'd rather be walking the shops of Paris, as an example, that's just first thing that came to my mind. All right, well, we got something else to do. Come on, let's leave, or some other segue to move on to go shopping at a strip mall, like an outdoor, like to go shopping at an outdoor outlet store kind of mall where you're outside enjoying the sun still, but it's a shopping experience. And on the receiving end of the question, or if this question is being asked of you, be polite and truthful. The best thing that you could possibly be is truthful. I mentioned this a couple episodes ago, or in one of the episodes, I'm not sure off the top of my head, but Iago from the play Othello is one of my favorite villains or my favorite antagonists, because he tells one lie and it slowly gets worse and worse and worse until he has a web of lies that he can no longer maintain, and he loses everything based off lies. Whereas if he told the truth about everything, then his life would be so much better off. The people around their lives would be so much better off. It's phenomenal on what being truthful and honest would actually do. When you go on the date, be polite, courteous, and thoughtful. Gentlemen, expect to pay for everything on that date, whatever it is. Drinks, like water, again, non-altering substances, drinks like Gatorade, Powerade, soft drinks, water, hot chocolate, coffee, boba, whatever it may be, like a snack, a meal, whatever. Also, open the door. Let them go through the door first. One of the things that I do when and of course this has not happened for a while, is when I pick a lady up for a date, when they leave their house, I tell them that's the last door handle you're touching, unless it's a bathroom. Meaning, I'm going to be opening the car door. You're going to get into the car. I'm going to close the door. when we pull into our location, stop the car, I'm going to get out, open the door for you, help you out of the car. I know you don't need help out of the car, but I'm being gentlemanly. Let me be gentlemanly. Like, I don't necessarily explain all that, but this is the implications of that, of the statement. That's the last door handle you're touching unless it's a bathroom. Because you're not gonna like stand up and go to the women's bathroom and open that door. That's kind of weird. Way more weird than actually just opening doors, letting them go through. And ladies, please let them do that. Let them treat you special. Because they've taken the time, energy, and hard-earned money that they have to take you out on this wonderful date or this wonderful dating experience. And I really hope that it's wonderful. Even if the conversation's dull, even if it's like you find out something that's definitely a red flag for you and it's not there, at least you know that they're polite and courteous and are mindful of how to treat a woman. Also, make sure that you are sticking very closely to your red flag indicators. Red flags are there for a reason. That's why we did it before. Like, preparing for dating is you need to have your red flags. If I'm taking a lady out that seems Christian and they're like, hey, I'm Wiccan and I'm going to be going to a ritual later, I'm like, all right, well, you can go and do that on yourself. And I do appreciate your time, but I'm not interested in pursuing this any further than a potential friendship. Be honest with them. At the end of the date, be honest with them. If you're, hey, I really enjoyed the time, the conversation that we had. I would really love the opportunity to take you out on a second date. And already have, pro tip, already have something in mind so you can tell her how to dress and when you'll pick her up. And women, be truthful too. Like, the best thing that you can do for a guy taking you out, be 100% truthful, because the last thing that we want is to invest 6 months of our time and energy into a relationship, and you're not really that interested romantically, even though you're leading us on. It's devastating to us, and I totally speak from experience. 100% speak from experience. At the beginning of the episode, I asked, who should pay for the first date? I think the first date should be no money spent. Because that way there isn't any pressure to spend too much money over the limit that you as an individual have, and you can see the other part, if the other party is a gold digger or not, which is a red flag. Their being with you would be nothing but a facade, which is what I kind of alluded to earlier. The second question I asked, does the one exist? I personally do not believe the one exists. There's not one person out there for you. I do believe there is a type of person out there for you. The reason I say that is because love is a decision. Inklings or a liking towards somebody, but it's your choice to love them. And sometimes that choice is so subtle, as in, like, oh, they brought me flowers for the first 100 days that I met them, and it was in that time that I knew that I loved them. And then loving from that point on is a choice. It's going to be difficult if you're like, hey, I did love you, or I'm in love with you, but I no longer want to be in love with you. I am changing. That's a hard conversation to have. But sometimes a necessity, because the relationship just doesn't work, which is definitely something you should explore before marriage. And that's why dating and having those red flags and having your standards is really important. In the Bible, one of the most interesting books, it's also censored in the Jewish culture from my understanding, is the Song of Solomon. It's about how a relationship really works. And there's two qualifiers at the beginning of the book when one of the servants or one of the workers goes out to find a wife for his boss, or I'm not sure exactly. I don't remember exactly how it is, but they have to have a certain being out in the sun, and they have to work out in the field, and they have to be a camel waterer. So those are just two conditions, and like if it's in the Bible, because that's what I believe in, like and they have a beautiful relationship, and it's throughout the rest of the book that you understand what their relationship is really like. But those are two qualifiers. If there's a list for one of the dude's name Solomon, King Solomon, He had like 800 plus wives and like 1,000 concubines or something. So if you want to know what to listen to for like source material on like who knows their stuff, it'd totally be this dude. Like, who would know better than somebody that has this many romantic interests? A lot of them were political marriages because he was king. I really honestly don't think the one exists. It's just in the moment. I think if the one does exist and there's only one person for you, then that takes away free will. Because if you're convinced and you're 100% sure that somebody is your one, what does that person think? Well, have you talked to him? Have you built a relationship? Have you built a rapport with him? Probably not. Then that's not the one. Like, there is no one. There's just a type of person and type of character that is true. That's what I believe. Your homework, if you are single, look over the list of qualities you were looking for. Figure out where they are most likely spending their time and go there and meet people. Nerds hang out at nerd places. So if today's episode of Consequences of Communication really helped you out, this is episode 7, Building Relationships, Starting a Dating Relationship. If this helped you out or you thought of somebody as we were going through this today, please share this with them. And if you can like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a review, that would be fantastic. I do appreciate it. The next, I don't even know if I said Happy New Year. Happy New Year. This is so late in the podcast to say that, but Happy New Year. The next episode that we're going to be doing is going to be coming out in 2 weeks on January 16th, 2024 for Consequences of Communication Podcast, episode 8, Building Relationships, Dating Continued, and DTR. Delta Tango Romeo. The letter D, the letter T, the letter R, which means defining the relationship. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, take care, enjoy, and I'll see you later.